All right, I read the date first, so I now know what date it is before I say it for the recording. Welcome everybody to the December 6th Product Analytics Sync. Let's go ahead and get started. Axel, you've volunteered to review the build board. Take it away.
Yeah. So hello everyone. It doesn't look like Christmas. We have to we have to put some decorations in the meeting. So let's take a look at the board. We have the milestone planning issue still open. Maybe we should close it. We have the investigation of pre-aggregation of anonymized user ID. This is from Max. Max is not in the meeting, but this is basically for optimization of our queries. And I believe this is also blocking one of the issues we have further about adding support for the pre-aggregations. This issue is more of an investigation than an actual feature, but yeah, we also have another investigation slash spike about implementing.
I can speak to this one, Axel, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. And this is basically tracking session. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Thanks, Axel. Yeah, so I was working with Max on this last week, and so hopefully trying to make some progress today. But we've got the sessions cube joined with the user or the event table, which is working quite well. We were just having a bit of trouble to track the session end time. Those values aren't looking correct right now, so we're in the process of just like trying to work with those queries to basically be able to tell when a session ends, which will be useful for actually being able to determine and display the duration of a given session on a dashboard. So right now, my priority is the internal handbook and getting that instrumentation merge request updated, which we can speak to later today, or later in the agenda. But I do hope to make some more progress on this today before Max gets back tomorrow, but we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. Yes, so I collapsed the empty ones. On blog, we have the main deliverable that we have. There is implementing our analytic on the internal handbook. So I don't think we have much to say there yet. And we have a bunch of issues related to the onboarding, and Rob is doing a good progress with the issue that is blocking this task. I don't know if you have any comment, Rob.
No, we can talk about it when we get to that issue.
Sure. In dev, we have Dennis with the info.
Yeah, so last week we discussed having a shared GitLab instance as well as a new cluster to kind of test things out with. And so both of those are set up, and actually kind of going back to the previous blocked issue for tracking the internal handbook, I'm going to go ahead and get it connected to the shared instance and the new, not the new cluster, our existing cluster, just so we can move forward with the internal handbook MR. It does look like infrastructure is ready to implement the changes, but there are some details I need to know on my end to actually know how they're going to connect to the cluster. But until then, I think we can just unblock ourselves at this point and start collecting data officially on the internal handbook, and then swap things over once staging and production are connected.
Yes, thank you. So we also have the list of dashboard from Gian, and we also have this on the show and tell. So do you want to mention something? Yeah,
I'll just quickly mention that that's basically done. It's now in self-review. Once I've had a look over, I'll move it into the review column. And yeah, I'll demo this later in the call. Rob made some lovely designs that I put into our view code.
Thank you so much. So we have in review, we have Dennis again with the stack integration.
Yeah, I need to send over some credentials for the production change request, but I also need to make sure that there's right now the stack is under a security policy to request or to block any requests, so that are coming from unknown sources. So that's what I need to figure out with John Jarvis in terms of if there's a set of IP ranges that I can whitelist so that we can allow this request specifically, or if I just need to expose the cluster globally for now until the staging and production are connected. So I'm trying to figure that out with infrastructure. So I'll update hopefully next week.
Thank you so much. And Rob with the onboarding view up, the routing.
Yeah, so from last week, the code for this got quite unwieldy from a reviewer perspective, so I ended up needing to split it into 2 separate MRs. That first MR's been merged this morning. The second MR is approved. We're just waiting on someone from test to approve the feature spec I've created for the second MR. As soon as that's done, then that will get merged hopefully tomorrow. I believe there are +8 hours on me, so they will be well awake before I am. And we can then unblock all the other onboarding work that needs to take place, hopefully tomorrow-ish. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now we have the 2 issues related to the rendering widgets, the visualization. The first one is the table one, and Gian is working on it.
Yeah, so it's rendering, which is good. Thanks, Axel and Rob, for the great review. I think we're starting to get into a territory where, yeah, it's getting like there's a lot of parsers. So Rob made some good comments about like rethinking that. So I'm taking some time to think about how we can best handle that. But it should be merged pretty soon.
Yes, and I'm next. And talking about parsers, that's I just borrowed your code, Gian, from with the parser, and it worked just fine. Because for my single stat, I needed only a single value from a query. So we are working on that transformation layer, and I'm also demoing this further in the meeting. So yeah, I also had a pretty nice review from Gian. Thank you so much. So what we close, I believe we only have the top 2, if I'm not wrong.
My bookmark's showing a line chart, so I think we might not have any new closed issues this week.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
we're good with the build board.
That's it for our board. Who has the next point?
I have a couple. So thanks, Axel, for the build board review. There's a read-only item that I'll just quickly touch on. If you want to catch up on what Sam and I were discussing as far as sessions, please feel free to check out that recording. Sam and I also had a good session together to kind of discuss what we wanted to get out of the dashboards and really put in some concrete definition and requirements in there. So please review the issues at this point. And yeah, Tim, you had a comment about behavior. Do you want to vocalize that, please?
Yes. So looking at the example dashboards, I'm not seeing anything that we would be missing as soon as we get the data table and the single stat merged. Or am I mistaken? Do we need area charts, bar charts, anything? No, not really.
I think we can start with line charts for now, and then, you know, may not be the best visualization, but it's good enough to start. Yeah.
Then the only question that I saw was the percentage calculation, how we would do that in Cube, etc. This is something we would need to figure out, how to calculate something through a Cube query, but there must be an example for it.
We have a query for it. This is kind of what we're trying to figure out right now, because we actually handle all of that in one single query. The problem is that we're missing the end date to denote like a completed session. But there is a case where basically if there is no previous end time, that is effectively a new session. So what I'm trying to say is we do track new and returning sessions, but we can't return either of those right now until we fix that query. So I would say we have a decent chance of being able to show this right now, but if it proves to be too challenging or is maybe not performant enough, then I'm happy to like cut that out.
We can anyhow enhance step by step. That's the nice part of it.
Yeah.
But the percentage might be also something, so that we have 2 numbers and can calculate in the single stat a percentage. The question would be if we would rather do this on a query level or if we would do this on a component level, so that the visualization, we basically say here's 100% number and here's the actual number, and go ahead and go in percentage mode. Or do we do a visualization of the single stat that displays percentages? So I think there are a couple of possibilities that we would have at hand where we need to figure out how to do this. But
I wanted to see where the single stat looks up like post review, because I am quite curious about that, and I think it'll be quite valuable. You might have seen my screenshot in the Slack channel previously about providing delta values and percentages and things like that, or percent change.
Yeah.
So I think it is off the top of my head, like I would feel like it's a pretty simple calculation to perform on the front end, nothing too, intensive as far as front end performance. So I would love to see if there's like an option, and I would also like to learn more about these like parsers. If there's a way we can add an option to say, hey, here are two values, crunch these, and then provide a single value for the delta change or as the main stat or things like that. But we can explore that once the component is complete in its first iteration. So, but thanks for bringing that up, Tim. Cool.
I only just wanted to say, worst case scenario, performance wise, we can always use Cube's pre-aggregation to pre-query all this data for us as well.
Yeah. I am quite curious how pre-aggregations will work at scale and like how that will affect the Cube instance and how many of those instances will need to support pre-aggregations depending on the refresh interval. But that is definitely something we could theoretically use. I'm just curious how that will work in a more, curious how it'll perform basically over time. Did anyone have any other comments? All right.
Yeah, I might comment a bit when demoing the dashboard. So
okay. Cool. Then I think my last topic is there are ongoing discussions with Optimize as they're trying to figure out how to build dashboards for the group level and where to store them. I've been just kind of resurfacing previous discussions and previous ideas we've had when we were first exploring this some months ago. So effectively, our solution right now works at the project level, and I just kind of wanted to ask or open the discussion up to us here in this group about what ideas we might have in terms of storing dashboard configuration data for group level or anything beyond the project level. Sam, you have a comment here.
Yeah, so my thinking on this is that if we store configuration files and options in a project, we can then point the group at that given project using a setting. This is pretty similar to what we did with compliance pipeline definition files. And I believe it's also similar to the group level project template suggestion you made, Dennis. I'm hesitant to go down the route of putting an actual repository inside of a group. I think that's very confusing from a user perspective, since many of them mentally map project code repository. If we break that mental model, that's going to cause a lot of confusion. I didn't see a UX person from the group involved. I'm also wondering if their group has a UX person, maybe they would have a perspective on how to approach it as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I should have qualified that. Yeah, the wiki doesn't give the impression that you're operating on a repo, and I would imagine if we were to follow a similar concept, that it shouldn't just be like you shouldn't treat it exactly as a repo. It's just more of like, here's an editor, you can save changes to it, and that's that kind of thing. Like not giving it the full like same capabilities as you would with like a repository.
Right. If we remove the repo concept, though, I think we lose some of the work with this, just like you do with code, with merge requests, reviews, and everything.
Yeah,
so
no, for sure.
You get one, but you lose the other.
Yeah, and a big appeal is the version control aspect of it too, right? That's like one of the major pain points we're trying to solve. So I would say I would like the compliance pipeline / group project template idea a little bit more. That doesn't, I think, change too much technically from like that whole aspect of version control and all the features you get with that. And then that's a repository we can point to that works for organizations across the board. So, but I think there are other comments here as well. Oh, and Rob, you're just +1. You want to vocalize that?
Yeah, I agree entirely with this approach. It's how security policies work as well, where you have to select a security project to then add policies to. And yeah, I think Tim pointed out the biggest benefit to all of this would just be, and as you said, having those different merge rights and access controls to your dashboards. Just like we do with Sisense, where only some people are able to edit those. Yeah, it'd be I think it also then lends towards us being able to control access to individual dashboards as well, having the ability to define which dashboards are accessible by which groups of people or which projects.
we could enhance this at a later point also, that it's not just a project that you are pointing to, but rather like a project plus a directories, for example. But I think the looking and having been involved into wikis, it's a pain in development. To call it like this, it's a constant hassle. It never, just from listing pages, this was never performant so far. And so everyone hates it. To be honest,
yeah, we're effectively wrapping around a
user
repository again, right? So it's just more of a headache. Yeah, the more we discuss it, the more I like the idea of just pointing to a group or a project. I wonder if a group makes sense as well if we're thinking, or I don't know, potentially iterating to all of those capabilities, because Rob, you had a good point about access level requests. You know, you could have a group with multiple projects containing multiple dashboards, but then you can say here are the exec dashboards, only like, you know, top permissions can edit this, but then people may want to create their own, which then could be like a project within that subgroup, I guess, really following that group project level template concept. But I think if we start around that direction and figure out like a good first iteration or whatever's like the path of least resistance, similar to security policies, compliance pipelines, and group project templates, then we can go from there and just expand further. So I guess as far as action items, I don't think we have an issue. We had like an initial investigation, but I'll open up a more formal issue, at least for us to look at, and then potentially loop in optimize as well to see if we can kind of converge on a solution together.
We had that spike with Jeremy and Max and myself where we discussed this in some detail, but as you said, that was only an investigation. That wasn't proof of concept or anything like that.
Yeah, and since we've kind of settled on one solution, I would say let's reopen it and we can refer back to that previous discussion, but then we can kind of say, here's our proposal, here's what we think might work best, and where do we go from there? So thanks everyone for sharing.
And for this, Optimize is going to be building this themselves sooner, I assume, versus them waiting on us, correct? Mm-hmm. Because their whole capability is about group level items versus us focused on projects right now.
Yeah, I would just say it's more of a coordination effort, but I think they'll be on the execution side of it, and we can stay focused where we're at currently until we have we will at some point, but we don't have a current need for it. So just want to make sure that all the groups are on the same page.
Cool. From a technical level, the code wise on the back end, we have a hard coded path that we go to on a project. From their point of view, it would just be changing that to check to see if there's a group setting available or not, and use that instead. It's not, from an implementation, it's not going to be that difficult, apart from setting up a UI.
Sure.
And awesome. I would do the same for projects and groups, so to make it easier, so that any project would point to another project. Maybe we could say we also allow to point to itself, but for example, GitLab has very rigorous merge request code stuff that is super complex if you would have then someone editing dashboards, because the problem is if you're editing a dashboard and you save it, then you would be running into the problem that you can't commit, that your new dashboard would be in a merge request. So any fast editing would be almost impossible in your original project. So I would definitely take a look that we go the route both for projects and groups.
Yeah, it sounds like something potentially like a cascading framework where we can override or even lock it depending on the organization's needs. But I do believe we have a framework for that where we can then add that flexibility to define it at the project level or lock it at certain levels. So that's definitely something I'll include in the issue.
Funny how we see these similar sorts of problems in different groups, problem spaces, because we spend a lot of time in compliance as well as secure and cascading settings. So interesting to see it again.
It's a good thing we have the framework now. Sam,
exactly. So I had the next one. I just wanted to check in with how the transition to using our testing cluster rather than the infrastructure managed one was going from last week. I wrote this question, Dennis, before your update you just did.
No worries. Yeah, just to recap, we're good to go. As soon as I wrap up my initial set of meetings today, I will be updating the internal handbook MR so that we can get that merged and start collecting data. So we're
Do you have a link to the MR or the issue that it's being under? Is it that one?
If you go to the build, I don't have it offhand. If you go to the build board and blocked the top issue that is assigned to Rob, that is the internal handbook issue change. and that will have the link to merge request. But I will be updating that with a new app key as well as the endpoint, and then that will point to our cluster. Because that's honestly what we've only needed. We've just been trying to do the proper integration for a bit, but we'll get to it and then swap over. I'll retain the app key, and then basically behind the scenes nothing will have changed. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that.
Cool. Yeah. Then we got some demos.
Let me quickly share my screen. This will be a quick demo for me. I think Axel's going to demo most of the stuff that is super interesting. So this is the new product analytics dashboard. This was made from Rob's nice design here to show you the delta, because it really seems like we're starting to build an actual product that people would want to use or see, especially for the internal demo. This is how we started out, and this is where we are with this MR. So yeah, really simple, but I think it's a nice little polish on what we have to offer. So yeah, Axel, you're next.
Thank you. So there is a blending sound. Hopefully it doesn't.
No, Zoom's doing quite well masking it.
Thank you. So yeah, at the end, this is going to be a quick demo. This is basically all of the visualization that we have right now in a single place. We have the single stat one with a static icon and a meta text. We have the table visualization that Gian is currently working on. This is me fetching the changes from Gian's MR that is in progress and rebasing it locally. And the first one we finished, the line one. So yeah, I just wanted to show you all of these in the same place. We don't have much on the audience dashboard. And I also wanted to take a look real quick to the single stat options that Dennis was talking about. So yeah, right. What we talk on Slack, that we are able to pass most of the properties directly to the component. Although I mean, we have this lingering question about how to make this dynamic, or how to put an extra layer here to make, for example, the calculation that we will need to show a difference between values. So yeah, this is probably going to be committed like this without any actual so dynamic pattern. Yeah, but again, this is the first iteration, so
that's looking good. And yeah, we can explore that later
Really
on,
good.
whether that happens in Cube or in this component. But I don't know if we pass like an object or an array of values and we tell it, hey, do perform X calculation on it. But we can, that's a spike for another time. But the visualizations are good. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, I'm really excited that we're getting to a point where we have pretty much all the Lego blocks needed to build those two dashboards. So I think the next few weeks are going to be exciting, or rather, once we all get back from a Christmas and New Year break.
Yeah, 15.8's got all those dashboards lined up. So yeah, please check out those issues. Make sure they sound good to you. And it seems like we have all the pieces in place otherwise, assuming Max and I can get the session query fully tuned up.
yeah, this is exciting. So team, take it away.
Yeah, super exciting. And I think we might even just take a day to build those dashboards, hopefully, with everything in place with the dashboard designer and the widget designer.
Yeah.
So I cut the MR, the widget designer, the first version. The MR is ready and I'm waiting for green pipelines. So all the specs are written, which was super tedious because there are a lot of buttons that can be clicked. This is now the final version of the widget designer. There are mainly two more changes. So one of them is that you can do page views. That's something you already saw. We have now a nice loading screen. And in the middle, it's now preview data, the preview the widget. And on the right, we will have the chart types, where you can basically then select what type of chart you want to have for that kind of data. And as soon as you have selected it, you will be also able to edit all the options for that type of chart. That's currently the idea, so that you have on the left the data, on the right the visualization, the actual one, and you then can basically change vice versa. It will always, as soon as you click add to dashboard, you will see always the code because we can't save it anywhere at the moment. The most interesting thing that I would say is on one hand that the grouping now works nicely. So it says events grouped by day. And the other thing is that you can do multi-dimension adding, which
Nice.
is pretty interesting because you can say, okay, what are the hosts that we are getting data? And then you can say, I want to add another dimension for the page path. And then you will basically, now we just need a thing to sort, but you will basically get not only the host, but also the path, and could say which ones are coming from where, but you can also combine this, that you say what were the page languages that were used in a different host. And you see the offender is page.gitlab.com that is using Windows 1252. And this is basically, you can add as many as you want, and is adding more and more to that query, and is transpiling directly into the query for Cube. And this is something you can take one-to-one and it works. So yeah, hopefully all the specs get green. The only thing that, as this is using then the data table from Jan, which is also working nicely, I'm simply waiting until this is merged. This looks already very far. Then I will go rebase, and then we can get this into review. So getting there. And the next version will then be having filters and date ranges on top of it. So
Very cool.
Very nice.
Looking really good.
So yeah, I'm really hoping that we can simply extend our session maybe in 1 or 2 weeks by half an hour and build all the dashboards together, because we have everything in place. That would be the optimal result, I would say. So
Yeah, let's keep an eye on how things are going, and we'll extend one of these sessions.
BYOB.
Great work, Tim. It's nice to be in
Thanks a
a team
lot.
with 4 front-end engineers.
That's true.
Yeah, I feel like you've only said that because Max isn't here. Anyways, I think that's the end of the agenda then. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring up or discuss before we call it? All right, then it's good to see everyone. Have a good rest of your week, and take care.
Likewise. Great work, everybody.
Bye.